Welcome to my live. I'm DJ Ray. Every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock live, right here on TikTok, I host a different episode of DJ Ray's Music Goats. Goats standing for the greatest of all time in different music categories. We've done so many different types of categories so far, from hip hop to greatest divas to, greatest guitar player of all time to the greatest duos. Tonight, we're going to take you back probably as far as I've gone yet to the greatest 50s and 60s song of all time. But before I get started, I just want to explain what I mean by 50s and 60s really quickly. The reason, if you noticed, they called it 1970s the 70s, 1980s the 80s, the 1990s the 90s, 2000s. But why do they call the 50s and 60s? And I'll explain. First of all, music was just born. Well, rock music was just born in the 50s. So, but there wasn't a lot of it because it was kind of new and yeah, like they only had maybe half the decade of music. But that's not the real reason. The real reason they call it 50s and 60s is because as you may or may not know, well, you must know unless your head's been buried in the sand, in 1964, there was a little thing called the British invasion. And when that happened, led by the Beatles and then the Stones, when that happened, music began to change quite drastically. So if you notice, the early 60s sounds like the 50s. After 64, 65, it sounds like the 60s, the hippie 60s and psychedelia and all that kind of stuff. So it changed quite. Led Zeppelin. I mean, Led Zeppelin doesn't sound like 50s and 60s. The Who doesn't sound like 50s and 60s. So, I mean, they didn't fit in. So really, if you want to narrow it down, 50s and 60s would be anywhere from 1965 and back. Okay, so let's just say it like that. It makes it a little easier. Anywhere from in the 50s, anywhere from like the 50s to anywhere in the 50s to 65, the highest. Okay, so when you're picking your songs, which by the way, if anyone is new here, we do a little fun thing where we ask you guys to type in your favorite song. It's better to type it in sooner because if somebody else says it before you, it's kind of like you got the idea and thought, oh yeah, that's a good one. So the person who chimes in first will actually be the winner. And if it is the number one song on my 20 countdown that I'm about to do, you're the winner. There's no actual prize, but it's pride, not prize. So how's that? So I've noticed a couple of picks have already come in. Darren, as always, going right for the throat, eh? Jailhouse Rock, nice pick. Mary with the twist, Chubby Checker. I guess Darren realized he put Pink Floyd in there and realized it's not really 50s, 60s. Although they did come out in the late 60s. It's not what we're doing really tonight. It's a little more psychedelia, I guess, in the 60s. Rock Around the Clock, Bill Haley and the Comets, picked by Ange. Yeah, so keep them coming in. Anyone who hasn't picked yet. And we'll see who's the winner this week. Who really knows their oldies. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump right into it with song number 20. So here we go. Excuse me, guys. Song number 20 goes to Frankie Avalon and Venus. As a music artist, Frankie Avalon was a teen idol who had an amazing 31 charting hits in the US from 1958 to 1962. Sorry, Ricky, the category is the greatest 50s and 60s songs of all time. Basically from 1950, early 50s to 1965. Any songs in there, the sock hopping stuff, the greaser stuff. Kind of like the movie Grease, that kind of music, except Grease really, the music in Grease wasn't really most of it from the 50s and 60s. It's just, like Grease Lightning and stuff. That actually was a 70s song, but it all sounded 50s and 60s. Anyway, I'm going to continue. Sorry about that. He had 31 charting hits in the US from 58 to 62. including the number one hit Why, released in 1959. The song Venus was Frankie Avalon's other number one hit in the US that spent a total of 5 weeks atop Billboard's Hot 100 chart. The lyrics within detail a man's plea to Venus, the Roman goddess of love and beauty, to send him someone to love. Billboard magazine ranked this track as the number 4 song overall for the year 1959. In 2016, this love song appeared in the film 10 Cloverfield Lane, starring John Goodman, and was also used in season 4 of the TV series Dexter, in which John Lithgow's character, Arthur Mitchell, plays the song to help remember his deceased sister. So yeah, coming in at number 20, we have Frankie Avalon and Venus. One of, I think, only 2 or 3 ballads on the list. It's mostly good dance stuff. When you're swinging, what is that called? Jive? Swinging with the little poodle skirts and stuff like that. Good times. That was probably the best times, the 1950s, early 60s, when we were innocent. Not like today, It seemed like with the British invasion, things just started getting real, they should have more sock hops. Anyway, number 20 goes to Frankie Avalon, not Frankie Flips, Frankie Avalon, Portugal. Look at that. Canadian from Portugal. Look at JT, welcome. Number 20 on the greatest 50s and 60s song of all time goes to Frankie Avalon with Venus. Taking me to number 19. You guys remember Fats Domino? I found my thrill. Blueberry Hill comes in at number 19. And it's Fats Domino. One of the pioneers of early rock and roll, in 1986, Fats Domino was one of the very first inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The singles Ain't That a Shame, The Fat Man, and Walk into New Orleans were all named to the Grammy Hall of Fame. One other single that was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame is my number 19 choice, Blueberry Hill, which also topped the US music charts for 3 weeks in 1956. As well, Rolling Stone magazine included it on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Here's a few other points of interest where this song has left an imprint. Firstly, on the 1970s TV sitcom Happy Days, Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino was Richie Cunningham's favorite song. He usually would sing it in a sheepish kind of way whenever he thought he might get lucky. Anyway, I used to love Happy Days, so hopefully most of you remember it. Another reference to this song came in December 2010 when Russian President Vladimir Putin made a cover version of this classic for a charity that supports ill children. Videos of his performance quickly went viral worldwide. The Fonz, I remember him. Isn't that interesting? We paint Putin out to be a real villain, and I'm not saying he isn't, but why would he, do stuff like that for children, charities for children? It makes you wonder, Maybe we're seeing too much propaganda here in North America. Who knows? Maybe things are shifting, and the East is becoming the West, and the West is becoming the East. I don't know. What I do know is coming in at number 19 is Fats Domino with Blueberry Hill. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I love how we have so many Canadians in here. It's so great. Coming in at number 18 is The Platters. We're really going back now. The Great Pretender. One of the most successful vocal groups in the history of music, The Platters formed in 1951 and became famous with hits like Only You, 1955, You've Got the Magic Touch, 1956, My Prayer, 1956, Twilight Time, 1958, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, 1958, and Harbor Lights, 1960. However, their signature hit was released in 1955 and was the Platters' first number one US single. Of course, I'm speaking of my number 18 choice, The Great Pretender. This golden oldie has been covered by a number of artists, including Freddie Mercury, his 1987 version that peaked at number 4 on the UK music charts. Sam Cooke's version of the song is believed to have inspired Chrissie Hynde to name her band The Pretenders. I just mentioned about Freddie Mercury doing a copy of The Great Pretender. Oh my God, is it ever good? Check it out on YouTube, guys, if you haven't. Well, you guys know how great Freddie Mercury's voice is. I gotta be honest, his version I like better than the original. And I love the Platters. Tons of hits, and sometimes overlooked just because they came so far. I mean, they started in the early 50s, and for an all-black group to be that successful at that time in history, amazing. Broke down a lot of racial barriers, the Platters. So with that, I'm going to have a quick sip and let you know that I'm DJ Ray. I'm here every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock live on TikTok with my show Music Goats, which stands for the greatest of all time in different music categories. Tonight's category, in case you're just joining, is the greatest oldie, the greatest 50s and 60s song of all time. Okay? So, and again, what I mean by 50s and 60s is 50s right up to about 1965 when the British invasion started, because the sound changed drastically from that point on. Even look at the Beatles. They changed twice. They were revolutionary in 1964, coming off the Jets from England, and then they changed again into that, kind of that folk kind of style with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, just a recap of what we've got so far. Number 20 went to Frankie Avalon. It was Venus. Number 19 goes to Fats Domino with Blueberry Hill. Number 18 goes to the Platters with The Great Pretender. And number 17 goes to the crazy man, Little Richard with Long Tall Sally. Okay, now I was a little surprised at this one. I mean, as great as Long Tall Sally is, I really thought it would be, like one of his other songs, which I'll get to in a second here. But number 17 is Long Tall Sally, and it's a pretty cool track. Described as the architect of rock and roll, Little Richard's charismatic showmanship and powerful raspy vocals laid the foundation for rock and roll. Some of his most popular singles include Tutti Frutti, 1955, Rip It Up, 1956, Lucille, 1957, and Good Golly Miss Molly, 1958. However, his biggest hit of all was Long Tall Sally, released in 1956. Did I say that? Long Tall Sally. Take the marbles out of my mouth. Checking in here. Yeah. Cool. Little Richard, Long Tall Sally. This track became one of Little Richard's best known hits and has been covered by many famous artists, including Fleetwood Mac, The Kinks, Elvis Presley, and the Beatles. Rolling Stone magazine ranked this song at number 55 on its list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And in 1999, it was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Song number 17 on my quest to crown the number one 50-60 song of all time goes to Little Richard with Long Tall Sally. Okay, well, this is probably my favorite on the list, and if it was just me thinking of myself and not all of us together, as a big family, I would probably put it number one. Certainly my favorite. Number 16 on DJ Ray's greatest 50s and 60s song of all time goes to Del Shannon with Runaway. This classic rock and roll artist was posthumously honored in 1999 when he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He charted many songs on the Billboard Hot 100, including tracks like Hats Off to Larry in 1961, Little Town Flirt 1962, and Keep Searchin' 1964. However, nothing tops his 1961 debut release, Runaway, which was a #1 hit in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and America. On April 10th of that same year, 1961, Del Shannon appeared on Dick Clark's American Bandstand, which helped catapult the song to the top of Billboard's Hot 100 chart, where it remained for 4 weeks. Billboard magazine ranked this single as the #5 song for all of 1961, and Rolling Stone magazine included it on their list of the 500 greatest songs ever. Coming in at number 16 on my list of the greatest 50s, 60s songs of all time goes to Del Shannon and Runaway. God, that's one of those ones I want to hear now. There'll come a time, hopefully, where I can play these songs for you and it won't be, breaking any rules. It would be great. I mean, I have my system right here. I can literally play a bit of it and go to the next one. But I wouldn't be able to play the whole song. We'd be here until 11 o'clock at night or something. But it would be a good party. Anyway, let's continue our counting down the top 20. But the main thing here is to get to that #1 GOAT. Who's the greatest of all time? Which song is greatest of all time? Hey, Debbie. Wasn't that a party? Cool. Actually, that came out in, I think, the late 70s or early 80s. Don't quote me anyway, but it has a 50s, 60s sound to it, but no. Okay, so just a quick recap once again. Number 20 was Venus by Frankie Avalon. Number 19 was Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino. 18 was The Great Pretender by the Platters. Number 17 was Long Tall Sally by Little Richard. And number 16, Runaway by Del Shannon. Leading me to number 15, it's The Four Seasons. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons with Sherry. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons were a doo-wop group from New Jersey that sold an estimated 100 million records worldwide. Quite an accomplishment for a band from back then. Because many of those bands kind of slip off, and anyway, they received many accolades, including inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990 and the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 1999. Thank you for the gift. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ange. The Four Seasons and Sherry. This Italian-American foursome had an array of early hits such as Big Girls Don't Cry, 1962, Walk Like a Man, 1963, Ragdoll, 1964, Beautiful Song, Bye Bye Baby, 1965, and of course, my number 16 song choice, Sherry. Released in 1961, this song was the group's very first #1 single, which also topped the music charts in New Zealand and Canada. As with most of the Four Seasons' biggest hits, the song Sherry appeared in the 2004 Broadway play Jersey Boys, which went on to win 4 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. So number 15 comes in as Sherry by the Four Seasons. Yeah, it was cute. Okay, I think this is our only Canadian on the list. You believe there was a great Canadian singer? Anybody guess who it is before I say it? Back in those days, this guy doesn't get near enough credit. I'm going to tell you. Okay, number 14 on DJ Ray's greatest 50s and 60s song of all time. And keep in mind, this isn't about the artist, this is about the song. So obviously if it was about the artist, Elvis Presley would own it, but it's about the individual songs. It could have been a one-hit wonder. So, I like that gift. Look at me. I wish I could keep that on. Mary, just to be, you already picked anyway, didn't you, Mary? But Bob Dylan, I wouldn't really put him in 50s and 60s, even though he obviously came out in the 60s, because he was on the other side of the British invasion kind of thing. He was like, the folk side. You know what I mean? Not the sock hopping, poodle skirt type side. So that's why it's a little slippery slope trying to, when people say 50s and 60s, they just think it's all 60s. But if that's the case, like I said early, Black Sabbath would be on there, because Black Sabbath, I think, came out in Ozzy Osbourne with Black Sabbath came out in 1969. That's not quite 50s and 60s, even though it was in the 60s. It's a weird decade, the 60s, probably the weirdest one all time in music history. Anyway, like I was saying, number 14 comes to us, is actually by Paul Anka, and it's called Diana. Born in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, singer Paul Anka was one of the biggest teen idols of his time and a pioneer for Canadian music. A prolific songwriter, he wrote She's a Lady by Tom Jones, My Way by Frank Sinatra, and the official theme song for The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. He's best known for oldies like You Are My Destiny, 1957, Lonely Boy, 1959, Put Your Head on My Shoulder, 1959, and of course my number 14 choice, Diana. Released in 1957, this Paul Anka classic was inspired by a girl named Diana Ayub, who he met at church and eventually developed a crush on. It was a song that made him famous while topping the charts in Belgium, Australia, the UK, the US, and of course his native country of Canada. How are you, Teddy? So coming in at number 14, for all us Canadians out there, I know there's a few, Paul Anka and Diana. If you're just joining me right now, we usually do something, the people that have been to these lives before, and I ask if you could try and pick what you think is the number one song of all time, 50s and 60s song. So basically anything from like early 1950s right up to 1965, say highest. For the most part, is what we're doing tonight. So if you want to type in who you think is the greatest, an artist, a singer, a girl, a guy, a group, whatever, who you think has the greatest song. Actually, it's not the artist, the greatest song. Thanks for coming in, Teddy. Appreciate that. So my sister Ange is like my helper in the crowd sort of thing. She does such a great job. I wish we could all just give her a clap, but since I'm the only one that can be heard. And of course, my mom comes in here too, and she changed her name, so she's kind of thrown me off a little bit, but I know she's there somewhere hiding, clicking those likes, which feel free to do, guys, if you like. Okay, quick countdown on where we are. Number 20, Venus by Frankie Avalon. Number 19, Fats Domino with Blueberry Hill. Number 18, The Great Pretender by the Platters. Number 17 goes to Little Richard and Long Tall Sally. 16, Runaway by Del Shannon. 15, Sherry by the Four Seasons. And number 14, a fellow Canadian, Paul Anka with Diana, which takes me to my favorite number 13. Ricky Nelson, Poor Little Fool. Born into music royalty, Ricky Nelson was one of the biggest teen idols of his time. In many ways, he was just as popular as Elvis. He's best remembered for songs like Bebop Baby, 1957, Lonesome Town, 1958, Hello Mary Lou, 1961, and his number one single, Travelin' Man, also in 1961. His only other U.S. chart topper was his 1958 recording of Poor Little Fool. On August 4th, 1958, this track became the very first number one song on Billboard's, at that time, brand new Hot 100 list, where it spent 2 weeks as the inaugural chart topper. You believe that? He had the very first song, Billboard Hot 100, which is in today with the Kendrick Lamars and the Taylor Swifts and everything. He had the first chart topper in 1958 with this song, Poor Little Fool. My favorite, by the way, from Ricky Nelson. On August 4th, 1958, this track, did I hold on a second here. Sorry, guys. Sometimes you. It spent 2 weeks, as I said, on the as the inaugural chart topper. As a direct result of this iconic single, on January 21st, 1987, Ricky Nelson was officially inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Music royalty number 13 goes to Ricky Nelson with the song Poor Little Fool. Taking me to number 12. And this one comes to us from a little group called the Beach Boys. And it's called I Get Around. Formed in 1961, the Beach Boys were one of America's biggest groups throughout the 1960s. They were in the thick of things when the British invasion began in 1964, and were initially America's answer to this new sound coming in from across the Atlantic. Taken from their 1964 album All Summer Long, the song I Get Around became the group's first chart-topping hit in the US and marked the beginning of an unofficial rivalry between the Beach Boys and the Beatles. It topped the music charts in Canada, and in 2017, it was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. I know you think, how could the Beach Boys challenge the Beatles? Well, they were probably America's, I'd have to think about it more, but probably America's biggest group when the British invasion happened. So, and Beatles were the biggest British invasion band, although some may argue the Rolling Stones were, but not initially. So yeah, I guess America was trying to fight back from this craziness coming across the pond, and the Beach Boys were one of the country's biggest defenses, musically speaking. But we know how that turned out. The Beach Boys, amazing band, but not quite measuring up to the Beatles. But they do have the number 12 song of all the 50s and 60s selection with I Get Around by the Beach Boys. Song number 12. This next one, some of you may or may not remember. It's called At the Hop by Danny and the Juniors. Formed in 1955, this classic doo-wop group originally consisted of members Danny Rapp, Dave White, Frank Maffei, and Joe Terranova. Together, this foursome recorded popular singles like Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay, 1958, Twistin' USA, 1960, and of course, At the Hop, released in 1957. In December of that same year, Danny and the Juniors received a call from the legendary Dick Clark to be a last-minute substitute on his popular TV program, American Bandstand. After performing in front of a national audience, this upbeat track became a nationwide hit. Topping the charts in Canada and the US, this track became one of the top-selling songs of the year 1958. Primarily due to this iconic single, in 2003, Danny and the Juniors were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and they come in at number 11 on DJ Ray's Greatest 50-60 Song of All Time, and that's going to lead us into the top 10. Who is going to be the number one artist with the number one 50-60 song of all time? What's that song? You know, again, we're looking for the song, not the art. Well, the song and the artist if you want, but the song is what we're really looking for here. Like I said, I think if we were going with, well, I guess I better not say, but keep it. How's it going, Teddy? I don't know if I said hi to you yet, but so you guys ready for the top 10? Now let's do it. Number 10 comes to us from Dion and the Belmonts, and it's called Run Around Sue. Written by Dion DiMucci and Ernie Maresca, this classic doo-wop track tells the story of a disloyal lover. It warns all potential love interests to avoid her at all costs. Of course, her name's Sue, because she's known to be a cheater. Released on September 1st, 1961, it topped the charts in New Zealand, Canada, and the US. Ranked by Rolling Stone magazine as one of the 500 greatest songs of all time, in the year 2000, this single helped Dion and the Belmonts become an inductee into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. 2 years later, in 2002, Runaround Sue was officially inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My number 10 song, looking for that number one song of the 50s and 60s, comes to us from the Dion and the Belmonts, and it's called Runaround Sue. I'm going to tell you something right now. I think I saw somebody pick the number one song. So good on you. I'm not going to reveal what it is yet. We still got 9 more to go. So, yeah. Let's move on to number 9. But just before I do that, I want to remind you that I'm DJ Ray, and I do this show, Music Goats, featuring the greatest of all time in various music categories. Tonight's category is the greatest 50s, 60s song of all time. I'm here every Tuesday, religiously. Not that I'm a religious guy, but I guess I'm not too religious. I did this on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So if I can do this on Christmas Eve, I can do it on any day. I'm here every Tuesday, 8 o'clock live right here on TikTok with a different theme, greatest of whatever. If you guys have any suggestions on any kind of music you want me to spotlight on a future Tuesday, I know Mountain Mama asked for hip hop about a month ago, and the following week I did it. So, yeah, I'm always all ears. Candy's here with us. Hi, Candy. Okay, number 9 goes to the Everly Brothers, and it's called Wake Up Little Susie. One of the world's first successful rock duos, the Everly Brothers consisted of siblings Don and Phil. Known for their exceptional vocal harmonies, their music often combined elements of rock and roll, country, and pop. The song Wake Up Little Susie became the duo's first number one single in the US, and in 2017, it was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. The lyrics within are from the point of view of a high school boy to his girlfriend Susie. Another Sue, eh? What's with these Sues? In the song, the two go out on a date and end up falling asleep. When they wake up at 4 a.m., they realize how late it is and begin to worry about their parents' reaction. Those were the good old days when you knew better. And these kids were probably like 18 or 19 at the time, but they better be home by midnight. Due in part to the extreme success of this song, in 2015, Rolling Stone magazine ranked the Everly Brothers at number 1 on its list of the 20 greatest duos of all time. They were also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of the inaugural class of 1986. In 2019, Don Everly was inducted into the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum, earning him the very first Iconic Riff Award for his distinctive rhythm guitar intro on my number 9 song choice, Wake Up Little Susie. That is a pretty cool guitar riff. So coming in at number 9, we've got the Everly Brothers, Wake Up Little Susie. I'm just going to check the chat here really quick, see if I'm missing anything. I hate feeling left out. Let's see what's going on. You guys are chatty today. Look at you go. Okay. All right, just check it in. Don't forget, there's still time to pick what you think is the greatest 50s and 60s song of all time. I know I've got a bunch of choices so far. Like I said, I believe I seen the number 1 pick, so we may have a winner. I don't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure I saw it. Okay, just a quick recap. I think we left off at number 11, which was Danny and the Juniors at the Hop. Number 10 was Runaround Sue by Dion and the Belmonts. Number 9 was Wake Up Little Susie by the Everly Brothers. And number 8, That'll Be the Day by Buddy Holly. Years after that fatal 1959 plane crash that claimed the lives of the Big Bopper, Ritchie Valens, and Buddy Holly, music artist Don McLean referred to this tragedy as the day the music died in his 1971 song, American Pie. Prior to this horrific ending, Buddy Holly was one of America's rising stars with recordings like Peggy Sue. Peggy Sue was 1957. Oh Boy was also 1957. And Maybe Baby, 1958. However, His biggest hit of all, That'll Be the Day, was also his debut single. Released in 1957, it topped the charts in both the UK and America. This iconic Buddy Holly track helped pave the way for his eventual induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986. And in 1998, That'll Be the Day was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. Yeah, really sad, eh? I was just watching that movie a couple weeks ago, the Buddy Holly story. I think it was Gary Busey. Did a good job playing him. I think it's Gary Busey. And yeah, such a sad thing. You know what's so funny about Buddy Holly? I forget how old he was, but he was very young. And he had just started. He literally had all these songs in this period of like 2.5 years. Could you imagine how big he would have been if he stayed alive? Anyway, coming in at number 8, the late great Buddy Holly with That'll Be the Day. Which takes me to number 7, and I think somebody said this one. This is the first one somebody said. Now, you're not going to win by picking number 1, but it is a pretty good choice. Lucky number 7 comes to us from Chuck Berry, and it's called Johnny Be Good. Nicknamed the father of rock and roll, Chuck Berry is credited with developing rhythm and blues music into major elements that led to the birth of rock and roll. Such examples are displayed in songs like Maybelline, 1955, Roll Over Beethoven, 1956, Rock and Roll Music, 1957, and of course, his signature track, Johnny Be Good, 1958. This song is considered one of the most recognizable songs in the history of popular music. Credited as the first rock and roll hit, Rolling Stone magazine placed it at number 7 on its list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Pretty impressive. That same magazine ranked it at number 1 on its list of the 100 greatest guitar songs of all time. That's pretty impressive when you think of all the great guitar players over the years. Chuck Berry, as far as that, at least that song, Chuck Berry has the greatest guitar song of all time with this one. So he definitely deserves at least the number 7 spot, and that's what he gets. Coming in at number 7, Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. Taking me to number 6. Somebody said this one. I seen it, but it's not the number 1 choice, but it is a good effort nonetheless. And it comes to us by Bill Haley and his Comets, and it's called Rock Around the Clock. Formed in 1947, Bill Haley, this band might be the oldest. It's them or the Platters. So just a quick mention. Formed in 1947, Bill Haley and the Comets were considered to be at the forefront of rock and roll during its conception. They went on to record sock hoppin' hits like Shake, Rattle, and Roll, 1954, See You Later, Alligator, 1956, and my number 9 choice, Rock Around the Clock, released in 1954. This track was used as the original theme song for the 1970s TV sitcom Happy Days. So Richie Cunningham liked Blueberry Hill. The theme song was from Bill Haley, and then it changed to the early days. It was Rock Around the Clock, and then as a couple years in, it went to Sunday, Monday, Happy Days. You remember that. Rock Around the Clock went on to top the charts in Germany, Australia, the UK, and the USA. This made it the very first song to simultaneously peak at number 1 on both the UK and American music charts. Pretty cool. It's credited with helping bring rock and roll into the mainstream. Often cited as the biggest selling vinyl rock and roll single of all time, Rolling Stone magazine included it on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. Coming in at number 6, Rock Around the Clock and Bill Haley. Okay. Before I get to my top 5, I'm getting juicy now. There's some good ones here. 5 bombs. I just want to remind you once again, I'm DJ Ray. I'm here every Tuesday night live at 8 o'clock right here on TikTok with my show Music Goats, featuring different music themes. And tonight's theme, I'm trying to look for the greatest of all time 50s and 60s song. So far, we've counted down 15, and now I'm at number 5. And it's the Beatles. I Want to Hold Your Hand. Better known as the Fab Four, the Beatles led the British invasion with this song and caught North America by storm. It topped the charts in the US and became the Beatles' signature hit from their early years. Technically speaking, the song She Loves You was the band's first number one single, but it was released in 1962 prior to the British invasion. So, obviously, in America, I Want to Hold Your Hand was the one that really you picture when you picture the Beatles getting off the plane and waving, and that's the song that was big, which kind of puts it a little ahead of She Loves You. This legendary track remained on the US charts for 15 weeks and led the way for multiple other Beatles chart toppers to come. And there was a lot. In 2018, Billboard magazine named it the 48th biggest hit of all time on their Hot 100 charts. In the UK, it was the second highest selling single of the 1960s, just behind the aforementioned single, She Loves You. So the Beatles literally had the top two songs of the 60s with She Loves You at number one, and this one, I Want to Hold Your Hand, at number two. So you're probably wondering, well, why didn't I pick She Loves You ahead? Because I Love You literally was more big in the UK, even though it did well over in the US. But that was the first taste of the Beatles. The big one was I Want to Hold Your Hand. So that comes in at number 5, I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. Hi, Sarce. How are you? Thanks for joining me. Cool. Okay. And that takes me to number 4. Nobody said this one. Jerry Lee Lewis and Great Balls of Fire. Nicknamed the Killer, Jerry Lee Lewis has been described as rock and roll's first great wild man, although Little Richard fans might have something to say about that. A pioneer of rockabilly music, Lewis had chart success with songs like Whole Lot of Shakin' Going On, 1957, Breathless, 1958, and of course, his 1957 crown jewel, Great Balls of Fire. In the 1989 movie Great Balls of Fire, actor Dennis Quaid portrayed Jerry Lee Lewis in the lead role of this loosely based autobiography. 11 years later, in 1998, the song Great Balls of Fire was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. When I think of Jerry Lee Lewis, I mean, he's an interesting guy. I think he married his 13-year-old cousin, and he was off to he would have done even way bigger, but that really tainted his image, but he loved her, and he stuck with it, and, to each their own, and, but still managed to get the number 4 greatest song of that era, the 1950s and 60s, with Great Balls of Fire coming in at number 4 by Jerry Lee Lewis. And that brings me to the juicy part, the top 3, okay? Teddy, you're guessing Chantilly Lace is next by Big Bopper. Okay, let's see. We are into our top 3 right now. I'll do a minor drum roll, major drum rolls on the number 1 song. And like I said, at this point, the picks are all locked in, and I can say with certainty, hi, North of 49, thanks for joining me, that somebody did pick the number 1 song, and it was earlier in the live. So let's see. But before we announce the number 1 song, let's do the number 3 one, shall we? Yes, Ange, thank you for saying that for me. I do appreciate everybody for coming in, and I know a lot of you are friends of my sister Ange, and she's been my biggest fan and biggest helper here. So Ange, I love you and I appreciate you, and I love all of you, and thank you for the gifts, and thank you for coming back. We must be doing something right together, because it's working out great. I'm loving it. So let's keep it going, guys. I got lots more to come in future weeks. Let's do the top 3. Number 3, Elvis Presley and Jailhouse Rock. Better known as the King of Rock and Roll, Elvis Presley is regarded as one of the most significant cultural figures of the 20th century. Throughout his amazing career, he won 3 Grammy Awards, received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award at age 36, and has been inducted into multiple music halls of fame. Released in 1957, Jailhouse Rock was one of Elvis's 18 number one singles in the US. It also topped the charts in South Africa and the UK. The iconic music video for this song portrays Elvis as a jailbird who leads the rest of the inmates in a display of frantic dancing. Some of the infamous characters he refers to in the video include Shifty Henry, Spider Murphy, and Little Joey. Rolling Stone magazine ranked it as one of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And on November 27, 2016, it was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. And yeah, the king of rock and roll, arguably the greatest music artist of all time, arguably. And he gets the number 3 spot, Elvis Presley with Jailhouse Rock. And with that, one more reminder that I'm DJ Ray, and I'm here every Tuesday night with my show Music Goats. I'm here live on TikTok, 8 o'clock sharp. And yeah, we crown the greatest of all time in different music categories every week. We have a different theme. Tonight's theme is the greatest 50s and 60s song ever. And we now have number 2. And it comes to us via Roy Orbison. And it's called Oh Pretty Woman. Known for his signature dark glasses and dyed black hair, most of Roy Orbison's music projected vulnerability at a time when most performers projected strength. This certainly wasn't the case for his most popular hit single, Oh Pretty Woman. Released in 1964, this powerful and up-tempo track topped the music charts in many countries around the world, including Belgium, Ireland, Norway, Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Canada, and the US. Whew, gotta take a breath. It's a lot of countries. In 1982, American rock band Van Halen recorded a successful hard rock version of this song, and in 1990, this track was used in the movie Pretty Woman, starring Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. In 1991, partially based on the movie I just mentioned, this song won the Grammy Award for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance. And 8 years later, in 1999, the song Pretty Woman was officially inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. So there you got it. Number 2, Oh Pretty Woman, Roy Orbison. I gotta say, as a DJ, and there's been some amazing songs here, but as a DJ, that might be on this list the song I played the most throughout my career. I don't know why. Maybe the movie Julie Roberts, because I was in my heyday, helped it a lot, because I know it made a big resurgence. I think it did just as good, if not better, after the movie with Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman, than it might have done at the beginning. So it had 2 injections of charting, which is rare for most songs. Okay, you guys ready for the number 1 song? Somebody said it. I'd like to find out who it was. I'd like to find out. I seen it a long time ago, and nobody else said it. And it might be a little bit of a difficult one to figure out, although it's hugely popular. You guys ready for the drum roll? Number 1, greatest 50s and 60s song of all time. Well, I guess it's not all time because there's no 50s and 60s now, but of the time, goes to Chubby Checker. It's called The Twist. At a time when dance crazes were running wild, The Twist was at the top of the heap. Released in 1958, this fun party track topped the charts in both Canada and the US. It was ranked as the most successful single in Billboard history and held this title until 2021, when it was dethroned by The Weeknd's Blinding Lights. You believe that? Billboard's greatest Hot 100 song until just 4 years ago, when Canadian The Weeknd ousted it. That guy's another phenom on his own. But yeah, in 1988, The Twist was re-energized. Remember I was talking about having a second run, like Pretty Woman? Well, this one's kind of like that, except a little different. In 1988, The Twist was re-energized due to a rap version by the Fat Boys, featuring Chubby Checker himself. This version peaked at #1 in Germany and #2 in the UK. In the year 2000, this iconic track was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, and in 2004, Rolling Stone magazine included it on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. In 2014, Billboard magazine declared the song as the biggest hit of the 1960s. Well, obviously, if Billboard's going to say it's the biggest hit ever. Let's Twist Again's another one. You're right, Ange. And it did pretty good, too. But like any sequel, it's not usually quite as good as the original. But really good, you know. Either one gets them up there dancing, I'll tell you. So, yeah. Who said it? If we... come on, everybody. It was, what's his name? Eddie Cochran, right? Who said the twist? I can't seem to find it. Who said it? Does anybody know? Because somebody did say it. Was it Mary? Mary, did you say the twist? I think you did. Hold on, I'm going to go right back to the chat if I can get down there. Because I remember it was really early. Okay, does anybody know whoever said the twist? Please stand up. Please raise your hand. I'm pretty yeah, yes, it was. Good job, Mary. Your first championship. Good job. I knew it was coming. I told you. You can just tell you're all around it. You know, you're like circling the prey sort of thing. So congrats. That was great. And that was a kind of a hard one. Not hard, but I mean, I mean, if I was on your guys' side, I probably would just aim to the Beatles or Elvis, right? And think it's got to be one of those two, right? So awesome job, Mary. Finally, yeah. So yeah, thanks, Mummy Dearest. Appreciate that. So yes, just before I let you guys go, I'd just like to remind you of next week's episode, my live. Again, switching it up. It's going to be the greatest boy band of all time. Jackson 5, NSYNC, One Direction, Jonas Brothers. Who could it be? Just let me do this little TikTok thing here. Who will it be? We're going to find out next week. The greatest boy band of all time, happening Tuesday, March 25th, next Tuesday, live right here on TikTok at 8 p.m. with yours truly, doing my show DJ Ray's Music Goats, and we're going to find out who the greatest boy band of all time is. And just one more thing, please be sure and check me out on social media. I'm on most of the major platforms, and you can easily find me by typing in DJ Ray's Music wherever you go. Alternately, you can check out my official website at djraysmusic.com. Thanks for joining, Jen. Maybe we can see you next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Be a good show. The greatest boy band. And thank you, Mary, too. And thank all of you. Thanks for the gifts. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your support. I love you all. And I look forward to seeing you, Teddy, as well. You have a good night, too, sir. And everybody, take care. And cheers.